Good morning, fifth graders. Today, quick note, I do not have your student journal page numbers, so I can't tell you the exact page you're on in your student journal. You're going to have to help me by kind of looking for it. Okay, I believe it's page 60 something, but I think we can handle that since we're fifth graders. So just please find Unit 9, Lesson 10. Okay, Unit 9, Lesson 10. And that's what we're going to be working on today. So, quick reminder also about our pens. Green means go with me, write every single thing down I have. And red means stop and watch. Okay, we're going to be continuing with volume, which we've been doing for days. We're just going to kind of step it up to some more challenging problems now. Okay, so remember we don't use our problem of the day, but we are going to use it to write down our two formulas. And remember our first formula was volume equals length times width times height. And our second volume is volume equals base times height. Okay, so our objective is today I will find the volume of irregular figures. Okay, so what we've done up to this point is we've been finding the volume of rectangular prisms, or perfectly shaped boxes, we've been calling them. But now it's going to be irregular figures. So this is where things are going to be a little bit different. Okay, our vocabulary is still the same. We see what a volume is and talks about a rectangular prism, which we're going to not quite have. Our steps are what I want to focus on today. So now it says we're going to identify the regular prisms that make up the figure. Okay, so our figure is going to be made up of rectangular prisms. It's not going to be just one. It's going to be two. So when we identify the regular prisms, I actually want us to circle them. So we're going to circle them in step 1. Okay, step 2 says identify the length, width, and height of each rectangular prism. They might try and trick you, or you might have to find some of them. So just make sure you have the necessary measurements to do your work. Okay, step 3 says find the volume of each rectangular prism. So you're going to use your formula. You're probably going to be using volume equals length times width times height on all of them. And then on step 4, you're going to add the volumes together. And I'll show you why we need to do that. And then record volumes in terms of cubic units. So remember, volume is always cubed. So it might be feet cubed, or you could even write cubic inches. But you always are going to need your measurement and something about it being cubed. Okay, so I'm actually setting down my green marker and grabbing my red. If you want to just watch for a moment what this looks like. Okay, so my first problem says find the total volume of the figure in feet cubed. Okay, so the first thing you notice is it's not a perfectly shaped box. It's not a rectangular prism. What it is, though, is it's two rectangular prisms that have been put together. So I, in step 1, said I'm just going to identify them, and I told you I want you to circle them. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to, it's clear that there's one in front, and then there's that one in the back. So I'm just going to show that I know that they're separate. Okay, step 2 says I'm going to identify the length, the width, and height of each rectangular prism. I'm just going to see for each one, do I have all my measurements? So for my first one, I see the width right here, and I see the height, because remember my height is always straight up and down, like I measure my height. I don't see my width here. I'm sorry, my length. But if this is 12, wouldn't that make this 12? And then wouldn't that be 12 and 12? Do you see how those are all congruent? So now for this measure one, I have my length, my width, and my height. Okay, on the next one, do I have everything I need? I have my length, my width, and my height. Okay, I have all my measurements necessary. Okay, step 3 says I'm going to find the volume of each prism. So there's 2 prisms. So I have my first one, so I always start with my formula. So my length is 12, my width is 2, and my height was 2. So I get 24 times 2, and I know that is 48. If you didn't know that, you could do some side work. Okay, now what's the rectangular prism behind it we have to solve for? Length times width times height. So my length is still 12 in the one behind it. This time though, my width is longer. This one goes back deeper. It says it's 4. And my height is clearly longer, which is 4. So I know 12 times 4 is 48 times 4. Okay, if you can't do that in your head, you could do some side work. Okay, so I could come up here and maybe find 48 times 4. 4 times 8 is 32. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 3 is 19. So I get 192. Okay, let's look at our next step. Add the volumes, because this is the volume for this front box. This is the volume for the back box, but they want the volume of the entire shape. So let's add them. And I'm getting 240. And then let's look at our last step. Record volume in terms of cubic units. Okay, well, if I look at the problem, they told me it's feet. I also see feet in all the pictures. So my answer is 240 feet cubed. And that is how I would have attacked that one. Okay, let's see another one. Okay, find the volume of the figure in millimeters. Okay, so step 1, remember, was to separate it into 2 shapes. Now, if I look at this, we might separate it differently. Some people might see this bottom as one, and then this top as one on top of it. Some of you might have seen it as a tall one with one pushed right next to it. Now, it doesn't matter. If you do the math right, you'll still get the same answer. I'm going to say that I see it like this. I saw like a tall shape with one right next to it. Okay, step 2 is make sure you have all your measurements. Well, because of the way this is set up with my little boxes or my cubes, I can actually just count it. So I have my measurements. Step 3 is solve then for each shape. So for this one, my length is 3. My width is how far back it goes. So it goes back 1, 2, 3. And my height is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm getting for this shape 54. Okay, for this one, I'm getting, and I always start with my formula. It looks like it's a perfect cube to me. So I am getting for this shape 27. Okay, now that I've solved them separately, I need to put them together. So I have 54 plus 27 is 81. And my final step is my measurement is in millimeters. So it's going to be 81 millimeters cubed. And I am done. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, grab your pencil because we're going to do some together. Okay, please find this one in your journal. Okay, again, this one, it's pretty clear how they want it divided. It looks, this line tells us it's a bottom box with a top one. So I'm going to kind of just show that I see that they're separate. And now we're going to solve for them separately. I'm sorry, I missed after I know my measurements. This one I see my length, width, and height. This one though, I see my length, my height. I'm kind of missing my width. But if this is 3, this is 3, and then that's 3. So I know my width is 3 on that one as well. Okay, now we can solve. Okay, so I have volume equals length times width times height. I could do my top one first. 6 times 3 times 5. So I'm getting 18 times 5. If you can't do that in your head, you could do paper. I could do 10 times 5 is 50, and 8 times 5 is 40. So I know it's 90. My bottom, I get length times width times height. So I have 8 times 3 times 5, which is 24 times 5. And I could do the same method. I could break this up. So I say 20 times 5 is 100. 4 times 5 is 20. So I know it's 120. If that part confuses you, just do some side work. So my next step is to add my two volumes together. And I am getting 210. And then our last step is centimeters cubed. Okay, let's do one more together. Okay, so again, some people might see this as this with a long one behind it. I see it like this, one on the left and one on the right. So we're just going to count it so we don't need to double check our measurements are there. So I'm going to start over here. My length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My width is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my height is 2. So I'm getting 30 times 2, which 3 times 2 is 6. And then I add the 0. On this shape I'm getting, my length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My width is only 1, and my height is 2. So I'm getting 12. So 60 plus 12 is 72. And our final step is inches cubed. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today you only have 2 more to try in your book. Please try this one and I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.